I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
You want Philly?
Chase Utley, you are the man.
You come out backyard and you try to start something, you always get your butt kicked.
The prayers have been answered.
How about those Eagles, baby?
And Rio Muto can run for days.
Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
A perfect game. Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
All right, we are back here today with another Philly Talk episode. A lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Obviously, got to talk about the Eagles. No more Phillies. So, what are we gonna do now? Well, got some interesting things to talk about. First off, when it comes to these football ones, gotta start off, of course, with our NFL recap. Looking through, just some things that I thought were interesting. So let's see. What was the first real interesting one to me? I think the one that really stood out to me was the Ravens-Commanders game, because it was looking pretty close. But, Ravens come back and win that one. The Texans are 5-1. They beat up on the Patriots 41-21. The Bucks beat up on the Saints 51-27. That was pretty crazy. The Steelers are 4-2 and yet are going to be benching Justin Fields soon, which is pretty crazy. I mean, when you look into the underlying stats, it makes sense. I think they're 27th in passing offense in the NFL, but it's still kind of crazy to think that a guy like Justin Fields has kind of done his part in a sense and is still getting benched. But I mean, if you can find a way to unlock that offense even more with Russ, then I guess it's understandable. But, just kind of crazy to think about that. The Lions put belt to what with the Cowboys, 47-9. Lions are really looking like a scary team in the NFC. Might win the conference. Would not be surprised if they do. And honestly, I know as an Eagles fan, I'm obviously rooting for my Eagles to do it, But I wouldn't mind seeing the Lions win the whole NFC just because they're the one team that hasn't, I believe. I think I saw a graphic that said, when was the last time each team has won the NFC? And I think it said that the Lions have never won the NFC. They've more than likely won the North, but they've never won the whole conference, And this looks like their year. I mean, 4-1, but I think Hutch is more than likely going to miss the entire year. That injury was sick. It was one of the first. I took a nap on Sunday, and it was one of the first things I woke up to. I was disgusted by it. It was a very slow-mo one. I was very disgusted by it. And then, of course, the trade news. Devontae Adams getting traded to the Jets. Amari Cooper getting traded to the Bills. The Browns got, I think I saw a Browns fan say they got more than what they had originally given up to get him. So I guess you look at that as a win, but it's kind of crazy. My dad was asking me, do you think they go fire sale mode? And, part of me thinks so, but it's just does it even matter when you have that Watson contract, I think you can go all the way back to 2022? Yeah, that they gave him that contract, and you can see I hated that contract from the start. I was like, man, not only just because of the stuff happening outside of football, but on the field, it was this guy hasn't played in this long. He's gonna get suspended. Are you really going to? Are you really gonna give out that big a contract? That's one of my biggest issues with the NFL right now. And again, I'm always for the players getting their money. I'm not going to try and stop someone from chasing their bag, but the contract some of these guys are getting is absolutely absurd. You got so many people getting these big contracts just because they feel they have to be the highest paid at their position. It's it kind of reminds me of what happened with the NBA, where you started seeing even bench players start getting these absurd contracts, it's kind of crazy. We've just been going up because, of course, the salary goes up. You know, the salary cap goes up each year, but it's like getting some pretty absurd contracts. You know, like at what point are we gonna like plateau and be like, all right, enough's enough? You know, this is absurd money to give to just one player when we have a whole team to build. You know, so yeah, they can rebuild, they can ship people off. I just don't know how well it's gonna work when you still have that much money tied to one singular person. You know, and everyone's always like, oh, the quarterback's the most important. Yeah, look at all that money you gave a quarterback, and now you're stuck with him. You know, what are you gonna do with him? You can't eat all that dead cap. Terrible situation they found themselves in. And then Davante Adams in New York, it'll be pretty interesting to see. You know, him and Rodgers obviously have a good connection. I feel bad for Garrett Wilson fantasy owners, as that's just going to plummet a lot of his production. I still think he'll, you know, obviously get his touches, but like Rodgers is going to be feeding that ball to Davante, and maybe it helps him. You know, I mean, the Jets lost. I believe they're 2-4. Yeah, they're 2-4 now after losing to the Bills. So it's like hopefully that sparks something for them, especially because that AFC East is kind of wide open after the Bills. You know, because I mean the Patriots aren't doing anything. They're 1-5. The Dolphins, I think they had their bye week. They're 2-3. You know, so it's like you can realistically, you know, I mean they can realistically pass the Dolphins, and you know probably get one of those wild card spots if Davante helps them out, or yeah. Davante Adams, yeah, sorry. I don't know why I was blanking. But, you know, like my friend was saying, you know, it's like their defense, they still got some things to fix up there, which, you know, that's what the trade deadline's for. But who knows? Do they make such a big trade after doing this one for Davante Adams? I mean, they didn't give up anything too crazy. And then speaking of trades, the Jets gave Hassan Reddick, you know, permission to start seeking a trade. And man, did Howie Roseman cover all grounds, because if they trade him to an NFC team, the pick that they traded to us gets upgraded to a second rounder is what I read. So that trade is looking more and more, you know, favorable. We still wish we had Hassan Reddick, given the fact that, you know, our defensive line is struggling, but, you know, covered all grounds. And I'd love it to see him get traded to a NFC team so we can just get that second round pick. But I do not want him to go to a team that we would potentially have to face off against come like playoff time, you know. But good to see how he covered all grounds. And then getting into the actual game, we obviously got to talk about us versus the Browns. Touched on it a bit in the end of the Phillies season ender review. Should have been a really easy game to win, and at first it was kind of like looking like that when we went up 10, but then we allowed them to come back and tie the game, and then from there we you know, just kind of went back and forth with them, which is kind of disappointing because we really shouldn't have. You know, the Browns now 1-5, they're one of the worst teams, as I mentioned, with Deshaun Watson just being absolutely terrible. Should have been a much bigger win, should have had more. This team still cannot score in the first quarter for whatever reason. They are just absolutely struggling. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh, you guys won the game and you're still complaining," but it's like I have higher expectations for this team, at least when it comes to facing off against the Browns. You know, if they had this close to the game against, let's say, the Lions, or you know, even one of our rivals like the Cowboys, you know, or the Vikings, or, you know, going back to like Atlanta, you know, like, or, you know, the Bucks. Like, if we had this close of a game and squeaked out the win, I wouldn't be too upset. But the fact that you're having this close of a game with the Browns, you know, just disappointing, especially given the fact that AJ's back, Devontae Smith is back, Lane Johnson was back. But, of course, we can't have nice things because then Jordan Mailata goes down, you know? And he's looking like he's going to be out for at least a month. Potentially could be more. They have options. They could slide Mekhi Becton out back there. And then, you know, put Steen in right guard. Gonna be interesting to see what they do. I think that might be the best option, but the thing is, I don't know. Do you think Becton can do it? You know, or do you think he's found his place in the guard position? You know, rather than being a tackle like he used to be. Gonna be interesting to see what they do when it comes to that offensive line. But looking at it, Jalen Hurts, you know, gotta give props to him. 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, only took 1 sack. No interceptions, no fumbles, no turnovers on the day. Thank goodness, you know, I want to see more of this where he just is not turning the ball over like that. Saquon, 47 yards on the day. You know, nothing too crazy from him. Kind of wish they got to him a bit more, but, you know, nothing too crazy. Did pretty good. Kenneth Gainwell got some pretty good yardage in his touches. And then receiving-wise, you know, AJ, what a game to come back with. 6 catches, 116 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, 64 yards and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert also went down, and so Grant Calcaterra stepped in for him. 67 yards on 4 catches, the longest being a 34-yarder. And, you know, that's the other impressive thing. You look at all the guys. A.J. Brown, longest catch, 40 yards. Devontae Smith, 45 yards. We were airing the ball out pretty well, you know, so good to see that. Defensively, mixed bag, but very much an improvement from, you know, our previous games. Josh Sweat got a sack. Nolan Smith got a sack. Jalen Carter got a sack. And then Cooper DeJean, who, you know, was filling in because I think Slay was out. Cooper DeJean, Bryce Huff, surprisingly, Thomas Booker and Milton Williams all combined for 2 sacks. They each all were credited with half a sack. Nakobe Dean had 12 combined tackles, 7 solo, but don't let that fool you. He was not looking too great out there in this game. But, you know, I don't want it to sound as harsh, but, you know, you don't really have much better options, so you'll take it, I guess. CJ looked, you know, pretty good. He had 2 pass defenses. A lot of people were upset because it looked like he robbed Quinyon Mitchell of his first interception when the 2 of them both went for the ball. But, you know, you got to understand, CJ's a ball hawk. He's the safety playing back there. That's what his natural instinct is. You know, he sees the ball, he's going after it, trying to get it. You know, doubt it was intentional. And I like the way someone put it. You got to remember, he's used to playing with James Bradbury, and, you know, Bradbury being like 8 yards behind the guy in front of him. So, you know, can't be too mad at CJ for that moment, but it would have been cool to see Quinyon Mitchell get the first, you know, interception for his career. Been balling out. Cooper DeJean looked pretty good out there. I mean, he had, you know, he helped out with the sack out there. He looked pretty good. Going to be interesting to do. Going to be interesting to see what they do with this, you know, cornerback position. Obviously, Mitchell is far and away the best corner we have. But, I mean, Ringo, DeJean, you know. But, of course, you know, the one thing, like, I agree that I saw someone say when it comes to Cooper DeJean, got to see him keep this up. Got to see him do it for a couple more games before you can fully buy in, you know. But good start from him. And, yeah, the defense just, you know, looked pretty well. You know, got a good amount of pressure. Kind of what you want to see out of them more, you know. Bryce Huff, you know, still not doing a whole lot. But it looks like they did start changing their approach with him because people started looking into his tapes with the Jets, and they were like, you know, it looks like he's a lot more explosive, does a lot more damage when he's in, I think it's, I forget what stance it is. There's a specific thing that he does where he just looks more explosive, and they started doing that a lot more. And, you know, you saw it a bit more in this game where he had a bit more of an impact. So, you know, we welcome that, of course. And then, you know, just real happy with this performance from the defense. And overall, you know, glad to have seen them get the win out with this one. 20-16, not exactly what you want to see again when you're facing the Browns, but good to see. 3-2 behind the Commanders, surprisingly. And, you know, still looking like a pretty good team. Just, I don't know, we're very confused on where we're at right now. Nick Sirianni, I don't know. He's still very much on the hot seat for me with getting into it with fans, which you don't mind because it shows like has that fire in him, but still making some pretty bad play calls, still not giving Kellen Moore's the full keys to the offense, and like I was talking with my dad about it. I think the reason we're seeing that is because I think all the media talk and the fan talk is getting to Nick in a way. By that, like I was telling my dad, it just seems like because so many of us are like, what does Nick Sirianni even do? Like what is the point of having him as a coach when it seems like he doesn't do anything at all? It seems like he's trying to combat that by being like, okay, let me, start trying to do stuff on the offense. Let me try and start suggesting stuff on the defense, trying to run this and that, trying to take control so that it looks like I'm doing something, so that it looks like I actually, provide something. And funny enough, it's like it's being detrimental, It's almost like you would rather him do nothing than actually do something, because he's calling some of these plays where it's just like you're actively hurting this offense that should be a lot better, a lot more explosive. Would love to see a lot more of what we saw. What game was it? Was it the Saints game? I can't remember, man. I'm already like blanking on it, but no, it wasn't the Saints game, because the Saints game, no, because that one was low scoring. I don't remember which game it was, but you guys remember I was talking about it on that episode, talking about, that there was a lot more motion, there was a lot more stuff over the middle, so I would like to see a lot more of that going against the Giants next week. Again, another one that should just be an easy win, 2-4, what's it called? Sorry, I'm trying to remember what was the stat I saw about them, but I think Malik Neighbors is still out. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is still out. Brian Burns likely plays, but they're missing one of their big weapons. I forget which game it was that Neighbors got injured in. It was really sad to see because he was really doing pretty good, but the biggest thing is always going to be it's Daniel Jones. Like I don't want to be too mean, but it's Daniel Jones. It's like if you allow Deshaun Watson to do what he did, it's like if you let Daniel Jones do that, that's 2 weeks in a row that you're just like, man, we're really letting these quarterbacks do this to us. Like gotta be doing a lot better. And I think that's the one that they do with. I mean, they're going to the Giants, but they still should be better. Saquon's return to New York. Hope he goes off, And then, of course, I think the biggest thing is we're obviously going to be missing Jordan Mailata, so hopefully someone can fill in, step up, whether it's Fred Johnson. Why am I forgetting his name already? Mekhi Becton, Either of those two, whoever can fill in at that left tackle spot, to just step up, step in, and then, Grant looks pretty good. I think he can step in for Goddard if Goddard goes down, so we don't have to worry too much about the tight end spot. I mean, it's not like we were using Goddard anyways, right? So really just run the ball through Saquon on this game, really let him at it with those Giants, and then AJ and Smitty doing the job as well, Should be a pretty easy one. Hope to see us get this win, improve to 4-2. Hope the Commanders lose next week so we can hopefully jump ahead. On paper, you have a pretty easy schedule coming up. You just face the Browns. You got to face the Giants. The Jaguars are 1-5 right now, 4th in the South. And then before that, is obviously the Bengals, who are 2-4. Obviously, the Bengals are a bit more like you're like, oh, you gotta worry a bit about them, especially because they're gonna put up a lot of offense. I mean, we saw it in just last week when they went to overtime with the Ravens, 41-38. They're capable of doing that, but they're also capable of games like the ones against the Giants where it was 17-7, so hopefully that's what you can hold them to, but obviously you don't score 7 points, you score more. But got a bit of an interesting schedule. I would like to see them sweep this so that when they go against Dallas, when they go against the Commanders, when they go against the Ravens, if you take a loss, it doesn't weigh too heavy because you stacked up all these wins over here, especially because we're more than likely splitting with Dallas. As much as they've struggled these couple of weeks, we all know until it happens we're going to constantly be splitting this series for whatsoever. And then the Commanders, they're the biggest thorn in our side, as I mentioned in the season preview, that they always give us our biggest struggles. And now they got Jaden Daniels, who's looking pretty good, so it's like I would much like to see them stack up those wins before facing both those teams, because you just want to make it so that if you take a loss, it doesn't hurt too badly. Obviously, it will impact stuff like seeding, but as far as staying in that race, staying in the division race, get as many wins as you can against the easy teams so that, if you take a loss to one of the good teams like the Ravens, it doesn't hurt as bad, so that's what I'm looking for out of this team. And from here, again, I mentioned, oh man, there's no Phillies. What are we going to talk about? Well, got 2 other sports teams in the city as well, so why not talk about them a bit? Obviously not as in detail as the football and baseball stuff, but the Sixers looking to start the season next week. 22nd, I believe, is opening day for them. And then the Flyers obviously started. That first game was pretty good, went all the way into overtime and then into shootouts. Frost with the game-winning goal. Pretty crazy. Really enjoyed that game. Michkov looks good. Luchenko looks good. I'm really a big fan of him. I don't think he played yesterday. I know he didn't play the day before. I saw kind of similar to like the MLB, with their, manipulation of service time. They have like a certain window of games that they can like play him in before like they, have to decide, do we want to keep him? Because, they're both really young, but Luchenko is the main one that they're like, they don't know if they want to, keep him on the roster, so young, 18 years old. But him and Michkov look really good. They add a whole new level of like really like speed to that offense, just yesterday in yesterday's game, they ended up losing, which was a bit upsetting given that they had gotten the lead early. But Michkov had 2 power play goals, I believe, and I believe the second one was in the power play window. I know the first one was, but the 2 of them are really adding a new sort of dimension, so looking real promising with those 2, and overall, the first 3 games I've pretty much enjoyed. The second game of the year was obviously a bit of a blowout. I had like turned away for a second, and like boom, next thing you know is like they were up quite a lot. And then, like I said, yesterday's game was a bit closer, but like I said, I was kind of disappointed to see them lose the lead when they had gotten up 2-0, but it was whatever. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the first game as well. Right now, sorry, hold on. I'm trying to see. I forgot. I'm blanking on the schedules. I know we started off with Vancouver. Oh, then it was Calgary. Yeah, that one we lost 6-3, and then yesterday we lost 4-3 in overtime. Sucks to see, but been a fun start. They got Seattle next, and then they head home. Really late games, obviously due to where they've been playing, but been really enjoying this season. I've always, kind of like how I've been with basketball the past couple of years. I've kept like an eye on the Flyers, obviously, but I wasn't obviously like as invested as I am the Eagles and Philly. So I'm not gonna sit here and try and act like I'm some, super fan of the Flyers. But always interested to get into another sport and you know, I still remember, you know, some of the older Flyers, you know, obviously like I was just telling my dad, you know, I was remembering Simmons, and so I like decided to go look up some stuff for him, and then like all I see is just like I told my dad it was funny looking up Simmons and like the first page, not even seeing highlights, but just all the times he got into fights, and it was just hilarious. But yeah, I look forward to getting more into, you know, hockey, talking about it hopefully a bit more as I gain more knowledge, you know, and then throwing things to the basketball side. I mentioned, you know, talking about the Sixers. It's gonna be interesting, you know. I want to try and get back into basketball, because you could ask my dad. I actually like really used to be into it, you know, like on the same level as baseball and football, you know, especially because in middle school I had a bunch of friends who were into basketball. They were the ones that really got me to get more into it than before, when I was just kind of a casual, you know. So it was like they really got me to buy into it a whole lot. I was very interested in it, but I don't know, just interest slowly kind of declined. I obviously still kept an eye on my Sixers, still felt the heartbreaks of all their different disappointing seasons, you know, like that Game 7 loss to the Celtics, the Game 7 loss to the Raptors, you know. I don't know if I was doing, I know I was doing podcasting with my friends, but I don't know if I was doing anything sports related. But I wish I was doing, you know, this channel back then. So you guys, if you thought some of the rants I've had on the Eagles or the Phillies were bad, I wish you guys could have heard me just rant when the Sixers lost to the Hawks in, was it the 2021 playoffs or was it 2022? I want to say it was 2021. I think it was 2021. Oh yeah, because that was the year the Bucks went to the finals. When Ben Simmons passed up on that layup, when it was Trae Young in front of him. Ben Simmons is like 6'10", 6'11", I don't remember. Passing up on a layup when only Trae Young is in front of you. I wish you guys could have heard the ranting I did to my friend Ricky after that game and after that series loss. I want to say the way I felt and the rant I had given was probably topping any other rant. Topping the rant when we lost to the Diamondbacks, when we lost to the Mets, when we lost to the Bucks, when we lost. Actually, no, I wasn't too upset when we lost the Super Bowl. I was actually a bit more professional with that one. But any other loss? I mean, the only one I can think of that could come close is the way I felt after losing to the Seahawks, not last year, but in the playoffs in 2019. Only because of man, why am I forgetting? Was it Clowney? Clowney's hit on Wentz, you know, got me pretty upset, you know. And then also I was very much wanting to get rid of almost the entire secondary and defense after that year, because I was just so upset with them. But yeah, that rant that I went on for that loss, man, it makes me wish I was doing content creation a lot, you know, a lot earlier, so that we could have been talking about that on Philly Talk. But, you know, I've kept my eye, you know. I still obviously watch the Sixers, watch the highlights, you know, when I can, because, you know, again, living in California, you don't get a lot of the Philly games out here, you know. So, hoping to catch a lot more of both, you know, the Flyers, the Sixers. I don't know. It's being basketball are weird, because, like, I don't know what caused me to lose interest. I just know, like, I don't know, it started becoming less interesting to me, especially when I was watching the games. I was just like, man, this isn't as fun as watching baseball or football. As surprising as that may be to some people, but, you know, I was like, man, this isn't as interesting, you know? And, you know, maybe it's the way things have changed. Like, I'm not going to be one to say the three-point line ruined basketball. You know, I love seeing a lot of three-point shooters. I guess my thing is the way it's become so abundant, you know, and kind of ridiculous in current times. And you're asking, like, what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the example. I know it's only preseason, but, you know, I was telling my friend Ricky yesterday, Knicks fans are already getting on Karl Anthony Towns because Jalen Brunson shoots a shot, clanks off the rim. Karl Anthony Towns is there to get the rebound. What does he do? Does he put it back up? You know, he runs out to the 3-point line and bricks the 3. Keep in mind that's your center. That's your center getting a rebound, and is he gonna go back up? You know, like a typical center power forward would. No, he's gonna run out to the 3-point line. And I know that's such a specific example. That's such a nitpick. You could just be like, oh, that's just Karl Anthony Towns. Not every center's like that. And I know that. You know, we got some centers putting in that work in the paint still. You know, I mean, we just saw Zach Edey do. People were talking about Zach Edey. You know, he didn't really do. I don't remember how much playing time he got, but like in the playing time we saw, you know, he did some work in the paint. But it's like, I don't know. It just kind of, I saw that. I'm just like, man, what is basketball turned into, that a center is catching a rebound and not going back up with it, you know? But obviously, again, that could be such a nitpick. So, you know, like I said, I want to get more invested because I really love all 4 sports franchises in Philly. Like I said in the Phillies recap last week, as sad as I was, I can't imagine rooting for any other team, you know, than the 4 teams that I root for in Philly, you know? So I want to give an equal amount of love to the Flyers as well, and, you know, start giving an equal amount of love to the Sixers, as I've been kind of cold to them, mainly due to the fact, I mean, I think, I forget which Philly talk it was, but you guys heard me talk that, like, I'm just, like, I think that's another thing that's kind of hard for me to buy into with the Sixers. Just, I'm not a fan of their management right now, you know? Their management is very much not in tune / you know, like, really... They're just not really, they just can't convince me that they truly, you know, are connected with the city, and nothing exemplifies that more than the fact that they tried to even propose the idea of moving them to New Jersey and still calling them the Philadelphia 76ers, you know? And I talked about it, you know, that, you know, they just don't seem to have really a vision. Or, you know, they have investment, because you don't go out signing Paul George to try and help, you know, Joel Embiid out and Tyrese Maxey out even more than like previous years. You don't just go sign Paul George if you're not invested in this team and trying to, you know, get them a championship. But when I compare them to the Jeffrey Lurie's, the John Middletons, you know, management just doesn't seem like that, you know. And hey, maybe you can put it up to Lurie and Middleton pandering a bit more to the Philadelphia fan base than, you know, our current manager. But again, it's like, I just can't buy into it, you know. And I said it back then too, like, at least the Flyers, you know, after last, like, well, not after last year, like in these past couple of years, you've at least seen like there's a vision, you know, like there's a vision, there's something that they want to build, you know, and you know, they have a foundation to build upon, you know, there's a future there. Whereas, like I said, with the Sixers, it's kind of tough to imagine, because, you know, let's get into it, you know, with the whole season preview kind of thing for the Sixers. I think Kenny, obviously, you, if you're into basketball, you know you're into content creation with basketball, you more than likely know Kenny Beecham, KOT4Q. He put it beautifully when I was watching his video about the Sixers, and it's like, you want to believe in them. You want to be like Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, with the pieces they've put around them, with a good backup center in Andre Drummond. Some of the pieces they have, Yabusele, the guy from, oh man, where's he from? I'm blanking. I don't even want to pronounce his first name because I don't want to, you know, mispronounce it. But I think is it Yabusele? Is he the one that's on? Yeah, you know, he's looking pretty good. You know, like they basically, you know, like they went out and got, you know, a lot of these different pieces. You know, man, I remember this guy when he used to play on the Celtics, and when they drafted him, you know, my gosh, oh, he's from France. There we go. But you know, the Sixers, you know, they've gone out, they got, you know, Andre Drummond, which, funny enough, Drummond had a statement where they were like, oh, why'd you think of coming to Philly? And he was like, oh, well, when the best center in the NBA calls you to play with him, you don't turn that down. So I thought that was really cool. They went out, got I think Reggie Jackson was the one they just recently signed. I know they still have Kyle Lowry from last season, Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, you know. So it's like they have a bunch of these different pieces, you know? So it's like, you want to believe, you know, you want to believe. It's Paul George, it's Joel Embiid, it's Tyrese Maxey. You want to have some faith that they're going to be a contender, but then you think of all the previous years, you know, you think of Joel Embiid and his injuries. Paul George literally just had an injury scare either yesterday, the day before, sometime this past week, just had an injury scare where people thought, you know, he might have, you know, torn something, but it was just a hyperextension, so nothing too serious, I believe is what they said. But yeah, you know, it's like, you see that. You see the fact that you're worried about Embiid. They already came out and said that Embiid's not playing. I don't know if they said all of them or some of them, but they said, you know, he isn't going to be playing back-to-backs, you know, like previous years. So he might still play some, but like it's going to be cut back very much more than likely, trying to keep him as healthy as possible. So it's like, I don't know how that's a big issue with the NBA that people talk about, is the back-to-backs. So it's like, you know, more than likely you're going to see that thing again about like, oh, you got to play this amount of games to be considered for certain awards. You might see that with Embiid again. So it's like, I kind of share that sentiment where it's just like, you want to believe that this core can do something, but you're just worried about all those injuries. You know, you're like, can Joel Embiid stay healthy enough, especially come playoff time, to help out this team? You know what you're getting in Tyrese Maxey, the franchise, as we like to call him, you know. And then Paul George, you're hoping he can stay, you know, the form that we've seen him in, but also, you know, kind of help elevate and change things up in this offense. You don't have Tobias Harris to blame anymore, you know. You got some different pieces. Obviously, at the trade deadline, you can make some changes. Jared McCain, the rookie you drafted as well, you know. I'm actually a bit high on him compared to, you know, a lot of different pieces on this team. I don't know, I've just kind of liked what I've seen from him in preseason so far. And, you know, I like his energy. I think he's going to bring a unique vibe to this lineup, you know. So there's like a lot of interesting pieces to work with, but I'm just like, man, how's it going to work out, you know? How are injuries going to work out, especially, you know? How are certain pieces going to mesh? What are the different rotations going to look like, you know? Like, what is it going to be looking like off the bench, you know? Because you have, like I said, Jared McCain, you have Kyle Lowry, you have Reggie Jackson, you have Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin. I think Oubre is starting. I can't remember. Then again, opening day is still a week out, so I don't know what the opening day lineup is going to look like. You know, Drummond's going to be our backup center, you know. Really, I'm really happy with that signing, because it's like, it's going to really relieve a lot of the pressure on Joel Embiid. I mean, we can remember how many times it was like, all right, they take Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid off, put the bench on, and it's like they're actively worse without him, you know? So it's like, well, a guy like Drummond should be able to hold it down so that, you know, Embiid can go on that bench and rest a bit more and not have to worry about getting back in to keep us in the game, you know? So they're going to be a real interesting team, but it's going to be very much dependent on health, you know? Like, that's the biggest thing, is what is the health going to be like for Embiid, for Paul George? And then obviously, even though they've not shown to be, you know, injury prone, it's like, you still got to worry about the rest of the team staying healthy, you know? You got to make sure that they stay on it, you know? So at the very least, I think, you know, obviously I think everyone's going to say they're a playoff team, but just the biggest worry is health, you know? And if they stay healthy, how do they match up with, you know, some of the, you know, top dogs in the East? You know, that's going to be the biggest thing to see. Very interesting to see. But that closes out this episode of Philly Talk, letting you know kind of the future. We're still going to talk Eagles every week, and, you know, might throw some Flyers and Sixers stuff in there, obviously. So going to be interesting to see, especially because, you know, maybe to give people content when football ends, you know, and we're waiting for baseball to start back up. And then maybe that makes covering baseball a lot easier, because I still have other sports to talk about. So who knows? Maybe new direction for Philly Talk. Don't want to... This is a big trope on this channel where I mention things, sometimes even promise things, and like it never... And I won't say never, but it takes so super long. But I am thinking about changing the intro, as much as my dad really loves the intro. But if I do start getting into Flyers and like covering Flyers and Sixers stuff more often, may think about changing up the intro, but don't know yet, just because that intro is so perfect, man. I put it, I don't want to gas myself up too much, but I put in a lot of effort and really like the way the intro came out, so I don't know. But, you know, you guys have seen with my different intros, I've done a pretty good job with them, if I do say so myself. So maybe I might be able to cook up a new one to include some good old Sixer and Flyers memories. Whatever I can find, you know, hopefully there's some good sound bites like there are with baseball and football. But that all said, hope the Eagles beat up on the Giants next week. Hope Saquon has a good old revenge game, and look forward to the Sixer season starting, and look forward to continuing to watch the Flyers, especially as they have their home opener soon after a Seattle game. But that Seattle game, I think, is going to be pretty good. I'm looking forward to watching that one, and just looking forward to continuing to support our glorious Philadelphia teams.